we go. All right. I didn't forget completely. I thought this was an appropriate shirt to wear today. Cool. So I don't have like a plan today, other than I was thinking about like, oh yeah, we should do that. Oh yeah, we should do that. But I don't have like a list or anything. But of course, if there's anything that any of you in particular are like, oh man, this part is really sad, please, you can unmute yourself or just drop in the chat. If there's anything in particular you want to make sure we hit, let me know. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is that if we're thinking about recovery, right, a lot of recovery is addressing the nervous system. So this is going to be like really low key. There's going to be a lot of breathing and feeling your body. And that also means that like we're not going hard. So hopefully that's obvious. But also, right, like I know circus people and I feel like I should say that also. Like this is like just it's cool, be chill. So yeah, as I said, let me know if you have any requests and take it easy and just feel how you're feeling. And if anything doesn't feel good, hopefully I'm going to be offering modifications. I'm going to do my best to remember that my body is not everybody's body, and if you need something a little less, yeah, hips. Oh yes, don't worry, Dory. Same. But I will be doing my best to remember to provide modifications, knowing that like not everybody's body is going to be as adapted to this stuff as mine is. But if we're doing something I didn't offer you a modification, again, feel free. I would say unmute yourself because I won't be looking at the chat, and just let me know like this feels bad, and then we can figure something else out for you. Let's get started with a foam roller if you have it. Does anybody not have a foam roller? Looks like everybody does. Great. So we're going to foam roll a little bit just to kind of get the rib cage moving. And then from there, we're going to do some breath work. So let's start with the roller just kind of on the back of the ribs. I see my Christmas food baby. Oh yeah. I ate a lot yesterday. And hands can support the head. The hips can float up off the ground. And we're just going to gently roll back and forth a little bit. And trying to go all the way along the length of the rib cage. So from those low ribs all the way up to the shoulders. And you could kind of imagine as you do this that your rib cage, not necessarily that you're trying to shove it down into the roller, but that there's this sense of it kind of like sinking down into the roller as you go. And then let's shift so we're a little bit more on one side than the other. So I'm kind of on the left side of my back. I've not gone onto the side of my body, but on the left side of my spine. And I'm going all the way up over my shoulder blade, definitely feeling some tender spots there. And then let's go over to the other side. Same thing. And again, thinking about that sense of kind of heaviness or weight that we have sinking down. It can be easier if you have a slightly softer roller. If yours is really stiff and rigid, you might not experience that as much. And then let's go, I'm gonna roll back to my left side, but you could stay on your right side. We're gonna go all the way onto the side of the body. And this can be a little tricky to figure out how to roll back and forth. So some options would be to kind of bring your top leg over so your bottom leg can bend back and forth. Or you could be a little bit more down, but I am still kind of using my legs to push me back and forth. And I'm going all the way up into my armpit. And then let's find a position kind of right in the middle. I want to be, and this is a little bit personal preference, whatever feels best. For me, it's usually right around the bra strap. And I'm going to let my bottom elbow rest. My legs are stacked. My top hand is going to come to my head. And we're just going to do a little gentle rotation in and out. Think about keeping the hips and the knees relatively still as we do this. Doesn't have to be forceful, but just kind of letting the lower part of our body rest. So we're rotating a little more from the waist up. And as we open, notice if you open by letting your rib cage lift up. And can we keep a little bit of that sense of like sinking down through the ribs? And you can look at your elbow as it opens out to the side. Let's open one more time like that. And then I'm going to come back so that I'm pretty centered with the roller still on my side. I'm going to extend my bottom leg and kind of cross my top leg over. And I'm going to let my head kind of hang down. And I'm going to let my shoulder roll a tiny bit forward. So the roller is now coming towards my bottom front ribs. And I'm just going to take some breaths here. And we have the roller kind of pushing up into our rib cage, but I'm thinking about breathing and expanding those ribs down. So having this thing in the way gives us something to try to reach into. And if this is really uncomfortable with the roller, you could always move the roller and just put like a folded up towel or something. So just something that's giving you a little bit of feedback. And you might also notice that you feel the opposite side of your rib cage. So for me, it's the back of my right ribs, or kind of like the back side of my right rib cage expanding with this kind of pressure and resistance in the front. And with every exhale, I'm really thinking about relaxing and sinking more down. Let's do one more breath. And let's come all the way up. And we're going to take it over to the other side. I'm going to flip around. Oh, this wide angle lens thing does not autofocus very well. I apologize if you get nauseous watching this. All right, so back onto the side of the ribs to roll all the way from the armpit. Oh, I'm rolling my pants off. Down. And, a thing with foam rolling is that it's okay to kind of hunt around, or all of this kind of self-massage stuff, right? It's never a static thing. So changing your angle, finding a little bit of extra movement as you roll. It doesn't need to be just in a line because our bodies don't ever really move just in a line. It is normal to have one side of your rib cage feel tighter than the other. And it is very normal for your tighter side to be your right side. So if you are experiencing that at all, that's normal. That's definitely my pattern. I always like to find a little bit of this sideways rolling back and forth too. So again, it's really just about what feels good. And then we're going to find our rotation. So letting the roller be still somewhere on your side, usually right around your bra strap. We're going to support the head with the bottom hand and the top elbows reaching up. And we're going to rotate that elbow down and then watch it as we rotate open. You could add some breath here, kind of playing with an inhale and an exhale. There is not a correct inhaling when you're closing, exhaling when you're opening, or vice versa. They all do different things, so it's something that you can experiment with. Noticing again if your ribs want to really lift up as you go to roll open, and can you think a little bit about keeping your low ribs heavy? And then we'll find our way back into the center to find our breath. So top leg can cross over, a little rolling towards the roller. Again, if you're replacing the roller with something a little softer and lower, that's totally fine. We're going to let the head hang down and breathe. Thinking about letting those low ribs expand down into the pressure, the surface that we feel. And maybe feeling the opposite part of our rib cage expand a little bit more as we have less ability to breathe into that front part. Take a couple more breaths, really feeling yourself relax and sink with the exhale. And let's make our way all the way off and put the roller to the side. We will more than likely come back to it, so keep it handy. But let's lay down on our backs, grab something to prop your head up a little bit. And we're gonna lay down and bend our knees. If you have something to slide your foot on, keep it handy because we might just go right into that. I'm just using a washcloth, so it doesn't need to be fancy. All right. So here on our backs, we're gonna let our feet be a comfortable distance apart, and knees are bent and pointing up. I want you to let your pelvis wiggle. You can do a little bit side to side, and then we're going to rock forward and backwards a little bit. So tailbone to low back, feeling the sacrum kind of tip from one direction to the other. And then we're going to find a place in the middle. And I want you to think about your tailbone and your tail, like if you had a tail. that it was relaxed and flat on the ground. We often end up with a little bit of tuck, a little bit of lift up of the tail, like we're trying to tuck it between our legs when we're laying on our backs, for a variety of reasons that I won't get into. So really notice and see if you can let your tailbone be relaxed and easy. And we're going to let our hands rest on the sides of our ribs. And we're going to start taking some deep breaths in. I like to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. You know, do whatever feels natural. And we're going to let our exhale be kind of a sighing exhale. And take a deep breath in. And with that sighing exhale, you can either feel the front of your ribs drop down underneath your hands, or you can give them a little bit of encouragement with your hands. Just kind of gently pressing your hands towards each other and sliding the front of the rib cage down towards your hip bone. So kind of doing a this direction, gentle push with your hands. And what we want to feel is the back of the rib cage kind of sinking. And as you feel the back of your rib cage getting heavier and heavier, I want you to start thinking about inhaling into the back of your rib cage. So now, on the inhale, the back of your ribs get heavier. And on the exhale, they get heavier. Notice if you've got any neck or shoulder tension with that breath, particularly on the inhale. See if you can relax it. Maybe that means letting your arms rest to your sides. That's fine. And now I want you to think about taking your breath all the way down into the bowl of your pelvis. And you could imagine in the base of the pelvis, we have a pubic bone that's near the front and our tailbone that's near the back. And we have sits bones from side to side, and they kind of make a diamond shape. And that diamond shape defines our pelvic floor, or at least the part that we're going to think about right now. So making sure our tailbone is relaxed, I want you to take a deep breath and I want you to imagine that diamond growing bigger. So kind of thinking about using your breath to stretch and open that whole space, maybe just a millimeter. And as you exhale, it's going to gently draw back together. So can we use our breath? Can we feel it go all the way down and stretch or lengthen the pelvic floor a little bit? And let's slightly adjust the position of our legs. So we're going to take our knees in and our feet out. And if it feels more comfortable for you to have like a block or something between your knees as you do that, we're going to be like this. If you don't need a block, that's fine. And we're going to keep doing that same breath here, thinking about expanding the diamond of the pelvic floor. This position, putting a little bit of internal rotation into the femurs, actually might make that feel a little more accessible. So if you were like breathing, not making that connection, putting a little bit of internal rotation might make it a little easier for you to feel it. And let's do 3 more breaths. And with these 3 breaths, I want you to think about exhaling until you have no air left. So deep breath in, and then everything out. Maybe you cough a little bit at the end, and then let yourself inhale. We often don't exhale fully, and then we can't inhale fully. So giving yourself that opportunity to fully exhale, maybe you feel like your next inhale is a little bit easier, a little more reflexive, and a little easier to find that feeling of expansion through the ribs. So let's take the block out if you have the block and bring our legs back to parallel. And we're gonna grab our slider. So I just have a washcloth. You know, sometimes I just have a wool sock on. I have a hardwood floor though, so easy for me to say. And we're gonna put the slider under one heel. And let's start by just letting that leg slide away. So I'm gonna flex my foot as I go. And then gently press my heel down into the ground to pull it back. So that's going to be the basic movement, but there's layers. So when we do this heel slide, we are lengthening our psoas. And the psoas starts, if you like scoop away all of the insides of your belly so that you can see the front of your spine, that's where the psoas starts. And it goes all the way down to the inside of your femur. So it's a hip flexor. Everybody hopefully knows that. We want to create as much distance from the spine to the femur as we can. And we're going to do that by thinking not necessarily about tucking or curling, but about allowing your spine to sink down. So with a deep breath in, as we exhale, we're thinking about our spine getting really heavy and sinking down into the ground while the foot slides away. And can you keep allowing your belly to get heavy and your back to sink the whole time your leg slides? And then gently pressing the heel down, keep sinking your back down. Think about keeping your belly kind of soft as you do this. So deep breath in at the top. And exhale, let the legs slide. Belly and back sink down. Belly stays a little bit soft. And then gently, almost like you're just dragging the heel back, can you keep your belly soft and sinking down? You're trying to keep your glutes soft as you do this. And you might notice that you've gone just a little bit into flexion of the low back, and that's fine. But notice the difference between this feeling of letting your back be heavy and sink down versus trying to tuck your pelvis. To me, it's a pretty big difference in a subtle way. And we really don't want to feel the front of the leg or the hip working, particularly as we do this in either direction, you might feel this deep sense of tug or stretch, which would be great, right? That's your psoas. It's deep. Let's do one more on this side. Deep breath in and exhale it out. And gently drag it back in. And then we'll switch to the other side. So taking a moment just to kind of breathe and thinking about letting yourself start to settle into the ground. And then we'll exhale and slide the leg away. And there's a little bit of a sense of reaching out through the heel, even though you're also sinking your back down into the ground. And then bellies keep sinking down. Ribs keep sinking down as we drag the foot back. Deep breath. And exhale it away. Notice if your neck is trying to grip here. If you have a little bit of dysfunction in your psoas and hips, it is pretty common to have a lot of tension in the front of your neck. So that's something that you might pay attention to. And I did not count how many we did on the other side, so we're just going to go for a little while until it feels like enough. Keep that sense of sinking the back down, softening the belly. And another image I find useful for this is like if you were a puppet and there was a string on your knee, lifting it up. Let the string do the work and allow your leg to stay as heavy feeling as you can. We'll do just a couple more on this side. Let's go one more time. All right. When you're all the way back up, let's slide that slider out of the way. We're going to open up the feet so that they're wider than the shoulders. The knees are still pointing up. And then let's just make kind of a windshield wiper motion with our knees from side to side. Arms can be wherever feels comfortable. All right. And we'll bring our legs back to pointing up. Feet can come in a little bit closer together, but a comfortable distance. You don't have to force them parallel if you prefer a little wider. And we're going to do a little bit of articulating through the spine. So lifting the booty up. I'm going to move my head support. I will leave that up to you to decide if it feels better or worse without it. But if you're feeling like you're getting a lot of pressure in the back of your neck, move it out of the way. So let's start with our arms resting down, and we're gonna find just a little bit of a curl, like our tail's curling between our legs, and then relax the tail and even let it lift like you're pushing it into the ground and you get a little space beneath your low back. And we're gonna rock back and forth like that a few times, and I want you to pay a lot of attention to what your butt is doing. So especially as we go into that curled position, I suspect that at least one of you is going to feel your glutes clenching and kind of squeezing everything together back there. And see if you can relax that and keep the glutes a little soft. You can even reach down with your hands and give your booty a little jiggle just to remind it or encourage it. We might feel a little bit of work in the back of the legs. That would be great. Get a little hamstring action here. And as we go, we're going to start making it a little bit bigger, allowing ourselves to lift up a little bit and relax back down. And here, continuing to try to keep the glutes a little bit out of it, right? Especially as we get higher up, they're going to start working. But in this initial stages of finding that more curled, flexed position of the pelvis and spine, it is not a movement that the glutes do. It's a movement that comes from the hamstrings and the abdominals. And I'm inhaling as I'm on the ground, lifting my back away from the ground with my tail up, so in a more extended position. And I'm exhaling as I curl and flex and start to lift my bottom up. So we're going to go higher each time. And you might think as your bottom starts to lift about pressing your knees away. And I'm going to start allowing myself to come up where I'm starting to even lift my chest and arch my back a little bit when I'm at the top of this bridge, shoulder bridge, well, whatever we call it. And on the next one, I'm going to really go up as high as I can. And then I'm going to bring my arms overhead by my ears. And I'm going to think about reaching them towards the wall or whatever's behind me, and maybe even gently pressing them down into the ground. And then I'm going to roll my body down, trying to pull my hips down to the ground like I'm making as much distance from my pelvis to my fingertips as I can. And as my pelvis lands and relaxes, I'll bring my arms back to my sides. And we're going to do that again, curling all the way up, pressing up through the hips, feet reach down, knees reach away. Hands come towards the ears. And then slow roll down, feeling all that length you can create and really trying to articulate, especially once you get to the low back, that's going to feel a little challenging. And then letting the pelvis land and relax, and the arms come down. And we're going to do that one more time. Roll and press all the way up. Arms by the ears. And roll down. And relax. All right. Let me see what time it is. Okay, cool. Let's roll onto the belly. So this is a little weird, and I suspect that none of you will have done anything like this before. You'll have done similar things, but the intention is probably going to be a little different. So you might watch me one time. And you could have sliders under your hands here. I'm on a hardwood floor, so I'm just going to let my hands kind of slide around. But I'm going to start by sliding one hand in. My fingers and my elbows stay reaching out, and they're kind of pointing in the same direction. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of a push, kind of like if you were doing a pec stretch, but we're not doing a pec stretch. This is more of a rib mobilization exercise. So I gently push down, but I'm thinking about reaching my elbow in the same direction as my fingertips, right? So if I was there in the room with you, my hand would be right here, pulling your elbow that way. And then rather than thinking about pushing myself over like this, I'm actually thinking about almost with my hand pushing down, my elbow reaching out, letting my ribs try to hang. So like they're trying to go down to the floor with gravity while my arm, my shoulder is doing this pushing motion, keeping my elbow reaching out. My hand is looking, or sorry, my head is looking at my bent arm hand. And then I'm going to switch to the other side and turn my head and find that same thing. So we're going to go from side to side like that a few times. And then we're going to go turning the hand to point towards the shoulder. Now my arm is a little bit pointing more on a diagonal instead of straight out to the side. And here with this rotation, we've got internal rotation in the shoulder. I've got that same idea of my elbow reaching away and letting my ribs kind of try to hang off. And we'll go from side to side like that. Yeah? So let's lay down. And if you have any questions, yes.
Yeah, is there anything in particular hypermobile folks should be aware of with this one? Just because I tend to not do things where I let my body just hang because I've got hypermobility.
Totally, yeah. So I think you'll find that as long as you're kind of pushing your hand actively into the ground and finding that active reach with the elbow, that it won't be super passive.
Okay, thank you.
Right? So if it does end up feeling like not great, let me know, or think about that push and reach out.
Okay,
But we're using the ground to create a little bit of activity and support. Yeah?
awesome. Thank you.
All right. So let's start, just pick a side. I'm going to the right. My arm slides in. I'm looking at my hand. I'm gently pressing and reaching out with the elbow. And I'm finding this feeling of my ribs just kind of being heavy. And let's take a deep breath there. And we'll switch hands, switch head. Press down with the hand, reach out through the elbow, feeling your rib cage kind of roll, but also staying heavy. Deep breath. And switch back to the first side. Inhale. And keeping that engagement through the arm, find heaviness through the ribs on the exhale. To the other side. Let's do that a couple more times from side to side. one more on each side, so a total of 4 on each side. You should feel a lot of space at your neck as you do this. So if you're feeling kind of crunched up, find that sense of your elbow reaching away. And then we're going to go into that internal rotation. So now I'm rotating my fingers to point towards my armpit. My elbow is reaching in the same angle as my hand, even though it's away from the direction of my fingers. And I'm looking at my hand. And I'm going to find that same push down and reach out with the elbow. Deep breath in, heavy ribs. And unwind that arm and wind up the other arm, looking to the other side. You might even feel like you're trying to pull your hand, sliding it away from your armpit a little bit might create some interesting engagement to play with. And switching sides. Again, trying to feel length in the neck. I'm on my first side for the 3rd time now. And switch. And one more on each side. Last one. And relax all the way. Now let's come on to the side of the body. Pick a side. And I'm going to be like so. So one arm is down supporting me. My elbow is under the shoulder. My legs are stacked up. I think I'm going to put a little padding underneath my elbow. And our front arm is supporting us, like so. And we're going to start just doing kind of a clamshell motion with the top leg. And what I want you to pay attention to, there's a lot of ways that we can open our leg, and just a little bit of change in intention can change the way that we experience it. So our external rotators connect to this bony knob on the side of our femur right here called the greater trochanter. And so from that point, all those stabilizers kind of go back in a fan shape along the back of the pelvis. The piriformis is the highest up one, and then they all kind of go under until these ones at the bottom wrap into the base of the pelvis. So at least one of them does. So when we are using our external rotators to stabilize the hip, part of what they're doing is gently pulling back on the greater trochanter to pull the ball of the femur more deeply into the socket. So we're going to do this clamshell motion with our focus on external rotation. So you can poke around the side of your hip and see if you can feel this bony knob. For me, it's just about in line with the hip crease. And it might, be a spot where you have a little bit of tenderness. We have some bursa there that can sometimes get a little sensitive. So as you open your knee, I want you to think about how that bony knob goes back and forward and back. If your arm gets tired, feel free to go down into more of a sideline position, because we're gonna do more from this elbow propped position. But we're just gonna think about that external rotation a little bit, feeling the greater trochanter shift back and forward. Thinking about finding a little bit of a reach out through the knee can help with this. So I would put my fingertip on your knee as you were doing this and tell you to just kind of press into me while still continuing to find that shifting in the hip. Let's go one more time, like that. Now I'm going to bring my top arm down and I'm going to extend my leg, and it's going to go back. And as it goes back, I'm going to allow my body to shift forward just a little bit. And then let's bring it forward, and I'm going to allow my body to shift back a little bit. My leg goes back, and I can kind of lean into that extension of the spine with extension of the hip. And there's a little rotation too. And I come back, and there's a little flexion. Extend and flex. One more time like that. And then we're going to take it back, and we're going to do a little bit of an oval. So I'm pressing back and up and around, back and up and around. I'm not trying to force my upper body to stay still. I'm finding a little bit of rhythmic connection between the two. So the more my heel presses back, the more I might feel my chest reaching forward. And there's kind of a pulsation. And then I'm going to take it into kind of a bicycle. So my leg goes back. I'm going to bend the knee and bring my heel to my butt. I'm going to draw my knee forward and extend my leg and flex. And I'm really trying to leave my leg back. So here, my knee doesn't move as I bend it, pulling my heel to the butt. It doesn't change the direction that it's pointing in, because clearly it's moving. And here, when I'm at my most extended position, I'm really reaching my heart in the opposite direction of my heel. So 2 more times. And let that leg rest. And we're going to shift over to the other side. All right. So finding yourself propped up on your elbow or laying down if you don't want to be on your elbow to start. We're going to find our greater trochanter. And we're going to let the trochanter rotate back while we open the knee. Thinking about that sense of reaching out through the knee as we do so. And you could even do a little compare and contrast here. What does it feel like when you just think about lifting your knee versus finding that more rotated effort? All right, and then we're going to bring our top hand down and extend our leg and flexing it back and pointing it forward. A little back and forth, allowing it to pulsate through the body. My bottom hand here even pulls a little bit on the ground to help me go further. Let's draw the leg back and find those little ovals back up and around. And then we'll go into our bicycles, extending back, bending the knee, drawing it forward, and flexing the foot. Pull your chest forward. Keep the knee pointing back. Do 2 more. And bring that leg down. And let's sit up. Just do a last little hippie something. So I'm going to sit in this kind of pinwheel-like position where I have both knees at about 90 degrees and in line with my hip. I'm going to open my back leg, and here we want to be in a position where we have our heels about in line with the knees and our shins about parallel to each other. So we can shift from side to side and always come back to this position in the center. So if you need to have your hands on the ground while you do this, I am more concerned about you being on your sits bones through the center and having your back pretty flat, rather than really wanting you to be up like this. So hands on the ground, totally valid. And I want you to think a little bit about, like, you have to move your legs through something viscous. So it's not easy, right? There has to be a little bit of effort. And the leg that's moving is kind of carrying the other leg along. So this leg just kind of stays until it has to go with this leg. And you might notice that you start traveling forward a little bit as you do this. That's very normal. So if you need to scooch yourself back, that's okay. And let's pause on this next one in the center and give your ankles or shins a little grab and lift your chest up. I'm just kind of shifting my hips a little bit. And let's go rounding the back and extending the back. And as I extend, I'm pressing down with my arms to help lift my chest up. And you could even kind of reach down with your hands as you curl and extend and curl and extend. Let's go one more time. Curl and extend. And then we're going to go to one side. And we're going to turn all the way away. And you can use your hand on the ground to kind of push you, rotating as far, looking as far behind you as you can. And then sitting back in the other direction as much as you can, seeing if you can get your back hip to kind of sit down. And turn all the way. And sit back. We'll do that a couple more times. And then let's open our legs through this middle position to shift over to the other side. And we'll go again, turning to look as far behind us as we can. And sitting back, letting the back hip sit. Seeing if you can turn a little bit further each time. Really looking as you try to rotate Go one more time. That should be about even. And then let's stand up. We're just going to finish with a little bit of rolling down. Oh, we don't have a head. There we go. All right, so standing, finding your feet a comfortable distance underneath your hips. Give yourself a little wiggle around. Notice where you feel your weight in your feet. So you could even kind of rock onto your toes and then onto your heels, lifting your toes. Find a place where your weight is really in the middle, balance between the front and back of your feet. Give yourself a jiggle, let your knees be soft. We're going to take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, I want you to drop your chin to your chest. And then imagining your head as a bowling ball. Let the weight of your head pull you down, your arms just dangle. Let your knees stay soft. And come all the way down into a fold here. Head totally relaxed and hanging, arms totally relaxed. Let your knees be soft so you can really allow your tail to lift up. When our knees are locked out, we generally don't get that last little bit of lift in the pelvis. And then we're going to roll back up. I'm going to start by lifting up my belly and pressing my feet down. My head and my arms stay completely relaxed. And I'm stacking myself back up, one vertebra at a time, pressing my feet down and letting my head float back up. And we'll pause here and take a deep breath in. And exhale. And again. Feel your feet reach down. Feel the crown of your head reach up. Let's go one more breath. And we're all done. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Stop recording.